So 2 weeks ago, I had the chance, if you guys were here, you may have noticed, I was not here. 2 weeks ago, Mike and I, we went down to Nashville for a conference that's called Immerse. It's put on by the Gospel Music Association, and basically it's all about music, hence the Gospel Music Association. They had different classes going on at the same time, so I went to basically all like the worship leader, the songwriting, all those kind of things, and then Mike went to the business side of the classes. It was a really great conference. In one class, I had no clue. It was like, I wanted to go to the same class as Mike, but I knew that we needed to go to two different ones, and it was because I had no clue what this class was going to be about. It said, what did it? It said like, teacher in concert or something like that. And I'm like, teacher in concert? Like what? Like you're teaching me how to do like I did not get it. But I was like, well, we probably shouldn't go to the same class. So I went to this class anyway, and it was probably one of my favorite classes. And one thing that the guy said, and I'm going to quote him exactly because he said it and I thought it was great. He said, so many people want God to tell them exactly what to say, but God has blessed you with your own gift, and you can use your life to say what you need to say. He was talking about songwriting, which is great because so many times we try to, look at other people's experiences and other people's things, but we have to realize that God gave each and every one of us a unique life, and we can use our life to say what we need to say. Again, so many people try going around trying to be like other people. They live their Christian walk like other people. They use other people's lives to give examples, and some of those things are okay, but like I said, I want to remind you tonight that you have a unique life. God has created you to be exactly who you need to be to walk in the purpose and plans that God has for you, and your life is going to speak to other people just by the life that you've lived. We don't need to try to be someone else. We don't need to try to use someone else's examples, but our lives are going to be able to speak and glorify God. And in Mark 5:19, it says, however, Jesus did not permit him, but said to him, go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you, and know he has had compassion on you. I have over here, your life speaks, because it says, tell them what great things the Lord has done for you. And my question for you tonight is, what are some great things that the Lord has done for you? Sometimes it's easy to think, well, the Lord, I'm looking at someone else's life and he seems to be doing great things in their life, but he hasn't really done anything for me. Or, I look at this family over there and it seems like they're, having blessings upon blessings upon blessings, but it doesn't seem like my family is being blessed. Or, it seems like they went through a situation, but when they got through the situation, it was awesome. But I went through a situation, when I got through, I didn't get through with all the awesome things that God told me, or that people tell me that I'm going to get out of it. So again, it's really something to think about, to think of what really has the Lord done for you in your lives. Again, it's easy to think that maybe God hasn't done things, or maybe God hasn't worked in your life and he's worked in other people's lives, or to think that our lives don't really say that much. You could say, well, you say that my life is going to say something, or you say that my life is going to speak something, but what really could my life speak? I'm only this age, or I've only went through these experiences. But again, the reminder is that God created you to be exactly who you are. And with that testimony, your life will speak. So I was thinking about something as we always read the Bible and we talk about, the parable of the Good Samaritan, or we talk about Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all the disciples, and we talk about all these different people in the Bible, Moses. Basically what this is, it's obviously God's word, but it's a collection of people's testimonies. We're literally reading the Bible and reading their testimony. And by reading their testimony, our lives are able to be impacted. So how much more can we think while we're living here on this earth that our lives can be that testimony, and our lives can speak something to someone else? So we have a testimony to share and a chance to let our lives really say something. So for me, how many of you guys have grown up in church? It's funny because I did, and I think about all the testimonies that I heard from, the pastor, and all the testimonies of, again, growing up in youth group, I had one pastor, and then it was another pastor, and then young adults, one pastor, and then it was another pastor, and then the main pastor. We hear like all these testimonies from all the different people in church, and my parents, I grew up with them going to church. So for me, it was when I was growing up, I kind of used my parents' testimonies. Like, yeah, well, my dad had muscular dystrophy and he was healed from that, or this and this. And I would use the Bible as testimonies. I would kind of look at other people's testimonies as a part of the way for me to speak to other people and to draw other people into God's kingdom and to give God glory. And I remember one time, and it was way back in the day at the CCA. I don't know if anyone remembers the CCA, and it was funny because I just kind of thought, like, I don't even remember how old I was, but I just was like, I don't really have a testimony is what I was thinking. Like, what's my life really going to speak? And some guy that I didn't even know, he came up to me, and I remember there was like this glass wall in the skate park, and he just kind of leaned on the wall, and he's like, you want to know what? He goes, you think you don't have a testimony. He said, but the life you've lived is so different than other people's lives that is your testimony. And I was like, I don't have a testimony. And he's like, you watch one day that your life, you're going to realize things that you've went through are going to be a testimony. And that's what we have to see, is that we may think on the surface that our lives aren't able to speak anything. But tonight I really want to challenge you to look really deep down in your heart and say, God, what is it that I'm able to share with other people to impact their life? God, how can my life really speak to the people that I'm around? So again, I remember even when I started preaching for the first time, it was like, so hard for me to think of examples of my own life to relate to things because I thought they had to be exactly the same. I thought if someone else is, going through a situation, I have to go through that exact situation to minister to them. And I was getting really like, how am I going to do this? But I love in this verse here, because in this verse, I'm going to scroll back to the verse. It says, tell them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he has had compassion on you. So it doesn't take the same exact situation to have compassion for someone else's situation. Because I was kind of thinking about Jesus. In no way, or no shape or form am I saying that I'm exactly like Jesus, but I was thinking about Jesus. He came to this earth and was perfect. Can we all agree on that? The word of the Lord says that he was here perfect. None of us are perfect, but he was perfect when he walked the earth. Yet he ministered to so many people. So if the stipulation was, you have to go through the exact same situation as someone else to be able to minister to them, we wouldn't be here where we are today. But it's because of the compassion that Jesus had for the people that he was able to minister to them. So the word compassion from the Merriam-Webster dictionary says sympathetic consciousness of others' distress together with a desire to alleviate it. Jesus had compassion for other people. I was thinking about, like, if Jesus had to go through all the situations that everyone did. So say he goes up to the woman at the well and he's like, oh, she slept with 5 men outside of marriage. I'll be right back. He goes, sleeps with 5 women, comes back. All right, now I can minister to you because I had to go through the same exact situation as you to be able to minister to you. But how many of you know he didn't do that? But he saw the woman at the well. He saw the need that she had. He had the desire in him to alleviate the hardship that he was going through. And because he had compassion and he went and talked to her, she was able to switch her life around and literally change a city. And that's who we need to be. We can't be the person who says, I don't have anything in common with you. I can't reach out to you. Sorry, go find someone else, Desiree. I just haven't been through what you've been through, so see you later. Right? We have to be like Jesus. It says we're all called to be followers of Jesus Christ. We have to be like him and say, God, what is it that I need is compassion. Because I know that I haven't been through the same thing as you, and you haven't been through the same thing who's sitting next to you, and she hasn't been through the same thing who's been sitting next to you. But the way that we help each other and the way that we minister through each other and to each other is with that compassion, the same compassion that Jesus had. All this to say is your life is unique. You don't have to go through the same experience as someone else to be able to minister life to them. But remind yourself, God created me to be exactly who I need to be, to minister to exactly who God has called me to minister to. And it's because I'm unique, it's because you're unique that we're able to reach a multitude of people, if you will. Again, your life doesn't have to be like everyone else. You don't have to go through the same things, but to see your life as unique and God's gift to you to be able to reach other people. Sometimes you may have went through the same situations, and that's okay. I'm not saying to completely only minister to people who you haven't went through the same situation as. Because I know my mother, for example, For some reason that God had, she had to go through breast cancer, but through that situation, she was able to minister to a bunch of women who had to go through that same situation. All that to say is our lives are unique. We can't say why we've went through certain situations that we don't understand. We can't say why God created us to be the way we are, but what we can say is my life is unique and I'm called to have compassion to reach other people. Your life speaks. With your actions, with your words, with your total being, you speak. And that's if you go home with one point tonight, I want you to go with, my life speaks. My life says something. Look into your life. We need to start examining, again, what we've been through and where God has taken us, and use those experiences to really help other people. In Matthew 5:16, it says, in the same way, let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Also, in sharing your life with other people, you become a light. You become the light that others see, and when they see it, they're able to glorify God. Just to think, by sharing the experiences that you've went through, by sharing yourself with other people, you're able to draw them to know God and eventually to glorify God because of them. Maybe someone who never would have known God, because you shared of yourself, because you shared of your life, they're able to now know God and have a relationship with God when they maybe never would have had that opportunity if it weren't for you. And that's awesome to think about. I thought about when I was younger, we used to do sleepovers, and back in the day, we did not have cell phones, so you would bring your flashlight to a sleepover. So I remember, and we always, for some reason, like to scare ourselves. So what we would do is we'd have our flashlights, and we would talk with our flashlight right here. So your whole mouth would light up yellow, and it's on a dark and dreary night. And it's when you were the one talking, you were the only one who was able to have your flashlight on, right? And then when you finally get to the climax of the story, you would turn your flashlight off and try to scare everyone, right? Or I remember one time you would try to if you wanted to be scary, you would take your sleeping bag and kind of cover your flashlight. But it was funny because I noticed that there was always light, kind of this orange light. Even when we all covered our flashlights with our blankets, you could see little orange lights all over the room. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Light in a dark place is very hard to hide. You have to try to hide it. If you just have a light on in a dark place, everyone's going to see that light. You have to go out of your way to hide that light. So, our lives, again, talking about our lives as a light, why would we want to, if we're called to be the salt and light in this earth, why would we want to hide that light? Why would we want to hide who we are? Why would we want to hide the uniqueness that God has created us to be? We can't hide who we are. And I want to tell you, do not hide who you are. Do not hide who God created you to be. Again, because we're called to be that light in this world. And how many of you know that the world is a dark place? And it needs light. No one knows that. 3 people. I like participation, if you haven't noticed, if you've been here for a couple weeks. Ooh, 2 hands. The world is going through a crazy everything. It's crazy. It's dark. And we're called to be that light. And again, we would have to go out of our way to hide that light, but it's time to say, I'm going to let my light shine. I'm going to let my life live. I'm going to let my life speak. Again, with everything that's going on in the world, we need to realize that they need light. And how are they going to get light? Through you. Again, we are that light in the world. And in Luke 10:33-34, it says, but a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. I didn't even plan that. I planned the 2 scriptures and then realized they both said compassion. I'll read it again. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw the man laying on the ground, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The story of the Good Samaritan, again, is one that I read at the beginning. A priest passed by, a Levite passed by. All these different people are passing by this man laying on the side of the road, people who we thought would have stopped and helped this man stepped over him, walked around him, whatever they had to do to get on their way and continue to do what they were doing, and they didn't let anything get in the way of where they wanted to go or what they needed to do. The Samaritan is the one who stopped and helped the man on the side of the road who had been robbed, who had been beaten. He's the one I have over here. Don't think inside the box. The Samaritan, this is my box. The Samaritan was not thinking inside his box. If he was thinking inside his own box, he would have stepped over the man as well and went on his merry way. But he thought outside of the box. He thought outside of his own selfish ambitions. He thought outside of his own plans that he may have had for his day. He thought outside the box and he stopped. Do you know that he wasn't even of the same belief as that person who was laying on the side of the road? And the Bible says the Samaritans didn't like them and they didn't like the Samaritans. He went out of his way to be kind because he had compassion. What if he would have been thinking inside the box? Oh, there's this Jew laying on the side of the road and I don't really believe the same as him, so I'm out of here. We wouldn't even be reading about it in the Bible, right? What if he said, oh, this guy's a little too old for me, I'm out of here? What if you thought, oh, I don't really like how this guy looks, I'm out of here? Apply it to your life today. They're not the same age as me, I'm out of here. They're not of the same race as me, I don't feel like ministering to them. Not the same gender, no way. That person is way too shy for me. Someone else can deal with them. Maybe you're thinking that person's way too crazy. I don't even want to deal with them. That's thinking inside the box. Thinking that the person has to be exactly like we are, and that's the only way we're able to minister to them is if the person has dyed blonde hair, she's 5'6", she is a she, her name's Ashley. Right? That's the only person I can minister to. But that's not what the Good Samaritan did. He thought outside the box. He said, I don't care what you believe. You're here and I have compassion. I want to alleviate the distress that you're going through and I want to help you. He says in here, you put him on his own donkey. I think he put own donkey in there so he just didn't throw him on some random person's thing. He said, I'm going to give of myself. I'm going to give of the things that I have and share these with you so I can help you. You may think that your life only may reach a certain amount of people who has been through the exact same things as you, but again, that's not necessarily true. Going back to the story that I told you in the beginning about this Immerse conference, the guy that I was taking the class from, his name was Jonathan Reynolds. And he was giving this example, and I thought it was just so cool, because I'm like, again, I didn't even know what to expect in this class, so I'm just like, whatever, I'll just take notes and see. I mean, he was like standing up there with his guitar, like singing at the same time as he was teaching. That's what a teaching concert meant. He played and taught at the same time. As he was singing, all I could think of was Nikki. I was like, oh man, she would like this guy. So write down his name and look him up. His name was Jonathan Reynolds. His voice, his music. I mean, maybe you would like him, but I just meant his music. He was an amazing singer, amazing guitar player. But that's all great. It was what he was saying that really impacted me. And he had this song, and he was telling about how he wrote this song. Again, it was all about songwriting. And he wrote this song. Okay, I want you, as soon as I say the song title, I want you to think, don't say it out loud, I want you to think what you think the song is about. His song was called Coming Out. All right, now that you had your first thought that popped in his head, he said, it's really funny because I wrote this song called Coming Out, and he goes, I'm going to be really honest with you. It was about fornication. That wasn't the first thing I thought of. But he said, you want to know what was crazy? So he's like, I'm going through this hard situation, fornication. I'm getting through, and I'm getting through, and I'm getting through, and I wrote this song about it. Put the song wherever he puts it, iTunes or wherever. He goes, I start getting all these letters. Man, you helped me get out of debt when you wrote that song. They're like, I was coming out of debt. Someone else wrote him and said, man, when you wrote that song Coming Out, he's like, you got me through my depression that I went through because of your song called Coming Out. Think of whatever it was that popped into your head. If we put ourselves in a box, I'm coming out of fornication, so I can only reach the people who are in fornication. No, your same testimony, your same situation that you went through may help someone through the situation that they need to come out of. You get what I'm saying? When I go through a situation, I may be just so torn up inside and I had to rely on God's peace. But that doesn't mean I have to go through the same situation as someone else to show them how God gave me peace and God can give them peace. If I have to go through a situation that it's like, man, God, the only way I'm going to get through this is your strength, and I know someone else going through a situation, they need strength, I can share what God gave me and know that God can give that same thing to them. And that's what we need to realize is when we think inside of a box, we limit ourselves for who we can minister to. But God says, I don't want you to think inside that box, not the box of race, not the box of age, not the box of gender, not the box of your situation and my situation. No, we're one body of Christ. And we're the light in that world. And again, think of the Good Samaritan. Again, it was assumed that he was a Samaritan, he was a Jew, a person who didn't like Samaritans, and Samaritans didn't like the Jews. So he went outside of his natural box to reach someone who is in need because he had compassion. And that's the same thing that we need to do, is say, God, give me compassion because I want to reach the people who I never thought that I was going to be able to reach. And in Luke 10:27-29, it says, so he answered and said, you shall love your Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, you have answered rightly. Do this and you will live. But he is waiting to justify himself. So he says to Jesus, and who is my neighbor? After God tells him what he's supposed to do, and he says, but who is my neighbor? This is how the whole story of the Good Samaritan started. This guy asks Jesus, and who is my neighbor? I need you to tell me, Lord, who I have to be nice to. Who really is my neighbor? That's what the guy said. That's what the guy wanted to know. It's like the scripture, 70 times 7, forgive 70 times 7. All right, God, well, I'm already up to that number, so does that mean I don't have to forgive anymore? No, that's not how we're supposed to think. God, what can I do to just get by? I don't want to give too much. I don't want to love too much. I don't want to get out of my comfort zone too much. What can I just do to get by? What if God thought that about us? I don't want to love her too much. I don't want to bless Ashley too much. I'm only going to forgive her 10 times, 10 times. And once she's hit that number, she's out of here. What if God treated us like that? Because honestly, that's sometimes how we ask God, well, God, what do is it really 10%? Is it 10% on like my actual paycheck, or my paycheck, or is it like 10% of like once my taxes are taken out? God, what can I do to just get by? Again, God, tell me, who exactly is my neighbor? Because when you tell me exactly who they are, I'll love them just as much as I need to, just to get by. So, I don't want God to limit me on his love. I don't want God to limit me on his blessings. I don't want God to limit me on his forgiveness. And we shouldn't do the same for other people. So I'm so glad that God doesn't limit himself in the same way sometimes we limit ourselves. Again, we may not think, well, loving my neighbor, whatever. Loving our neighbor is important. Do you know that it says these are one of my commandments? In Mark 12:29-31, it says, and Jesus answered him, the first of all the commandments is, hear, O Israel, the Lord of God, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, and you shall love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. This is the first commandment. In the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. You know, I want you to think for a second. Do I make a difference in this world? Maybe you're in school. Do I make a difference at school? Do I make a difference to the people who I work with? Do I make a difference to the people in my actual natural neighborhood? Do I make a difference at church to the people who are sitting next to me? Or when it's handshaking, do I go find someone else? Do the people who are around me see that I'm different? Do the people around me notice that my words and my actions are different? Do the people around me notice that I serve God? Not just from what I post on Facebook. But really in your life, the places that you go, the people that you're around, do they notice a difference in you? Why? Because those are your neighbors. Your neighbor, thank God it's not your actual neighbor, because I don't know if my neighbor would be there for me. If he's like mowing the lawn, I have to like get in his face and be like, hi, I see you every day and you never wave at me. Hi. So good thing it's not just our natural neighbors, right? But these are the people who are our neighbors. If we ask God, who's my neighbor? Every single person is your neighbor. Are you making a difference in their lives? Do the people around me notice that I'm a Christian? And Christian, I mean Christ-liked. Do people around me notice that I serve God and I'm trying to live a life like God? Because I hope to God that everyone in this room is making a difference in the places that you go and the people that you are around. How do I love my neighbor? You may be thinking, you're nice to them. You don't gossip about them. You don't say mean things to them. You don't say mean things about them to other people. You don't cut them down. You don't hurt them. All these different ways you're able to reach out to your neighbor. You're able to love your neighbor. If they need a shoulder to cry on, whatever time in the morning it is, you're their neighbor. All these things are included in loving your neighbor. And like I said, I'm glad it's not just my natural neighbors. Anyone else out there? It's the people around us. It's the people that we're around every day. It's the people that God has placed in your life, in every area of your life. Can I have the musicians come forward? This verse is a very interesting verse. Most people read it, but you don't want to believe it. So I want to read it to you. Whoever claims to love God, yet hates a brother or sister, again, not your actual brother or sister. Don't say, well, who is my brother and sister? Whoever claims to love God, yet hates a brother or sister is a liar. Do you believe that? Whoever claims to love God, yet hates someone, is a liar. Whoever does not love their brother and sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not seen. And I have over here, do you love God? And of course we're like, yeah, we love God. But my question is, do you love your neighbor? Do you love your brother and do you love your sister? Are you showing compassion for the people who are around you? Are you going outside of your box naturally and thinking outside of your box to help those people around you? Because it says, you can't love them. You're a liar. If you say that you love me, but you can't love the people who are here on this earth, you are a liar. I don't want God to call me a liar. Does anyone else? No. But the whole point is we always talk about loving God, loving God, loving God. How do we show God that we love him? By loving the people here on this earth. Not limiting ourselves to who's my neighbor, who's my brother, who's my sister, what do I have to do to just get by? But God, what really is it that you want from me? How do I really be a light in this earth? Maybe you're thinking, I don't have compassion. Tonight you can ask God and say, give me compassion. I love this song that we sing. It says, God, I look to you, I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. Because sometimes we don't see things the way that God sees them. We may see a situation as annoying and we don't want to deal with it. We may see a situation as uncomfortable and we for sure don't want to deal with it. But when we look at things through the eyes of God, we can say, Lord, give me the wisdom because you know what to do. I don't know what to do. But just because I don't know what to do, I'm not going to avoid the situation. I'm going to say, God, I want your wisdom because I want to know the way that you think. I want to know what you would do. God, I want the same eyes that you have because I don't want to see things like I used to see anymore, God. But I really want to see things how you see things, that I can have that compassion for other people and really go outside the walls of who I think I am, to go outside the walls to really be who you've created me to be. And that's not, the plans that God has for you are seriously limitless. We put put expectations on ourselves that build these walls. And he's like, man, break those walls down because I have so much awesome stuff planned for you. So tonight, if you guys could just stand with me, I just want you to really speak to God tonight and say, God, what is it that I can do to love my neighbor? God, who can I become that I can love my neighbor even more than I originally loved my neighbor? God, what is it that's inside of me that is my life is gonna speak because I can't find the testimony inside of me. I don't know what it is that I've been through that can help other people. But God, I want you to show me that so I can use my life to speak to other people, so I can use my life to be a light here in such a dark world that we live in. And I was sharing this with Christina earlier. I was saying that I was really, really praying to God earlier because we're just going through a crazy season. And the season has only just begun. And I honestly believe with my whole heart that these people in this room, our generation, is really gonna rise up and take that stand in this world and have that counterculture that's not gonna be swayed by the things of the world, but that's gonna say, this is what I believe. It's the living word. It's not a past word. This is the living word. This stuff still applies today. And we're going to be that generation that's going to rise up and say, God, I'm standing for what I believe. I'm believing for you. And it's things that go on, it's things that in the news that this is what I had to pray today. God, I really believe for our generation, but help my unbelief.